I went out to the hazelwood because a fire was in my head. I cut and peeled a hazel wand and hooked a berry to a thread. And when white moths were on the wing and moth-white stars were flickering out, I dropped the berry in a stream and caught a little shining trout. When I had laid it on the floor, I went to blow the fire aflame, but something rustled on the floor, and someone called me by my name. It had become a glimmering girl with apple blossom in her hair. She called me by my name and ran and faded through the brightening air. Though I am old with wandering through hilly lands and hollow lands, I will find out where she has gone and kiss her lips and take her hand and walk among long dappled grass and pluck till time and times are done the silver apples of the moon, the golden apples of the sun. They looked for various herbs and flowers in the dark. They were up all night gathering in preparation for the May Day and the celebration of spring, and so there was a otherworldly aspect to it, wandering around at night in the dark and the cold, and as it got damp, and then possibly becoming a little disoriented because the hours of silence and dark, and what sort of feelings you might land upon, and then being reborn, feeling that sense of rebirth as the sun rises through the mist, and you've gathered your blossoms, your herbs, and now there'll be the celebration, the spring celebration. I had that in my mind as that this is a suitable poem, that evoked this poem because of the reference to the apple blossoms in her hair. So that places the poem at in the springtime, right, around May. I thought that was suitable, and there is a lot of references. The poem is all about magic. Because hazel and the hazel wand and the silver trout. The silver trout in Irish mythology, it gives the gift of prophecy or the gift of poetry. Right? So there's myths about that. Like Taliesin, I believe, was born from the most famous poet. He was Welsh. So I haven't got my poetry all figured out, my mythology all figured out. But that's what it's about. It's the gift of poetry, the muse. So poetry is considered a muse, a connection with nature, with the sacred cycles of nature and life-giving. How you see the world. And so the girl with the apple blossoms in her hair, I would imagine that must have been some really strong sense of that muse, maybe. That feeling you have sometimes when you're a child, that other world, that fairy world is right there, that you can easily find yourself in it without even trying, just a song or a poem or a flower or a bird, or just waking up out of it, in the morning you realized, where have I been, and you were this other place, this magical place. And that sense of wonder and enchantment is something that, you know, children have within their reach very easily. But and then at a certain time in your life, you know, as a young man and as a poet, wanted to be a poet, you glimpse this girl and someone, you know, so he's called this poetic muse knows his name, right? Calls him by his name, so that sense of being called and recognize that this is what you're meant to do in your life, and so that's his life. You know, following this muse, looking for that expression, the fullest expression, and then he puts it in like a fairyland. That someday, you know, that's the vision that's always calling him on, is that there is this fairyland, she is there, and that they'll walk together.
Oh.
And because it's his soul, right? Like really it's his soul expression, and the expression of his soul. And then they'll be walking and plucking, and the plucking are the
apples?
Well, the silver apples of the moon, the golden apples of the sun. Apples have to do with, you know, immortality and knowledge and insight and wisdom. And so there's a wisdom that you gain from the moon, which is the lunar, which is the darker, more esoteric, the going inside, more occult, more like the mysteries,
Okay.
the darker mysteries, the deeper mysteries. That's the moon, that's the magic, that kind of moon, you know. And then the golden apples of the sun are the more obvious ways that we see nature working, you know, by sun. It's the truths, it's hymns and songs and the ways that people celebrate together, and the flowers, just things that we see. So you have the two different,
Yeah.
right? The moon and the sun and the moon balance each other out. And you could say that in our personality too, we would have the solar and the lunar. Solar is your more obvious ways that you interact with people, the things you do, and then the lunar is more the reflective and the dream state. That's a possibility. So, but there's much more. He's drawing on esoteric and poetic traditions of, you know, thousands of years. He's studied Irish poetry and mythology.
Oh, okay.
It was part of his life's work, right?
Okay.
So all of that is sort of distilled. So this poem is like a crystal distillation, a prism,
Okay.
to which seeing how you use magic in your daily life.
Oh, I didn't know I did.
Well, how you could touch it, or how you're drawn to it. That there's it's an invocation. The hazel wand. Hazel was definitely like a wand, a magician's wand. That's what they would use, is the hazel.
Yeah.
And you're going to try and catch some
Fish.
special wisdom, esoteric wisdom. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ah, that's cool.
So that's poetry. That's
It's beautiful.
that's the poetic soul.
Yeah.